And we're live in three, two, one.
The way it look, they don't have a plan. Everybody's, talking about get Trump out, get Trump out, get Trump out. If you vote, that's going to happen on the first day. So now what? Trump out, now what? What? What do we get in the first 100 days? That's what we're trying to figure out. What do we actually get that they could give us overnight like that? They just pulled $3 trillion.
Right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our next episode of Deliberation Academy. We got our guest speaker on Malcom. Me and Malcom attended the Warrior Scholar Project at Harvard University. After Harvard, he went on to go to Fordham for his undergrad, completing his undergrad, and then he went on to do his master's at NYU in cultural studies. And so that's right. Welcome, Malcom.
Hey, how's it going, man? How y'all feeling today? It's a lot going on. I'm just happy to be here.
Fantastic. So in Ice Cube's video, he mentions the contract with Black America and provides a link to it. And Lucas, if you could pull that up real quick.
Yes.
Point number 12 in the contract with Black America is what we want to focus on right now because of Ice Cube's call for action, something that you can get overnight, right now, that will make a difference.
So they want a HAP for Educations and Jobs program, adoption of HAP, a public-private program that provides access to jobs and education and or training for people willing to put in the work and commitment. So Malcom, do you want to, start us off?
Yeah, I think that's a really good tenet that Ice Cube brought up. I read it earlier, and I agree. I think, this is probably one of my more unpopular opinions amongst my friends, where it's like when you give people aid, you have to give them an incentive to grow also. Like I don't think aid without incentive is conducive to real success in the future. I think you can give people aid in the interim, and it's cool because I'm not judging. I'm not worried about nobody's pockets. I want everybody to win. Black people, we've been, in shackles for 400 years, 300 years, 200 years, Jim Crow for the next 70. So like, I'm not in the position to say like, we can't take all the help we can get. However, when you do offer assistance in 2020, I think we've become a better nation overall where we can get to those places. I think it is important to incentivize the aid that we give. And what Ice Cube is mentioning is kind of in line with what you guys are trying to do. And I think that's really, really important.
Right. Mark, you want to bring us up to speed on what we're doing on free market socialism?
Yeah. So what we're talking about is an idea which we're calling the Labor Brigade or the Labor Corps, which is essentially a bridge between capitalism and socialism, and hopefully addressing the pitfalls of both of them. For the conservatives out there who are instantly thrown into anxiety about hearing socialism, we want to say the whole point here is we don't touch the free markets. The free market is not being touched with this idea. What the Labor Corps is going to be, theoretically, a military-style organization where people can join and be provided a job, whether they are selected that job or selected for that job, whatever the case may be. They can select a job, have things taken care of for them, just like in the military, right? Have your housing, have your health care, have, food and job training. And then on the back end, after you're done, even some education benefits so that after you move on past this stage in your life, you can go somewhere else if you want to. So what we're thinking is that by providing this option, people who maybe are opposed to joining the military or people who don't want to be shackled with the debt of going to college have another option, have a place they can go where they can make a living wage, right? And the reason I say living wage, I want to make this super clear. A living wage is determined by where you're living, right? So a living wage right now, if you have to live in your own place, is much, much higher than if your housing is provided for you. So with our idea with the Labor Corps or the Labor Brigade, you have all of these basic necessities covered, and then you can be paid at a lower wage, although it's still going to be enough for you to be happy, right? Because if you don't have to worry about where you're going to live, you don't have to worry about where you're going to eat, you don't have to worry if you get sick, who's going to take care of you. Those things are taken care of. So the paycheck that's put on top of that is all yours. And the reason that I know that the quality of life in a situation like this is pretty good is because I've been there. I was an E1 in the military. Lucas was an E1 in the military. And I'm
Malcolm
pretty sure,
was
Malcolm,
as well.
you were an E1 in the military at some point too,
Yeah.
right? And when you're an
Yeah.
E1 in the military, you don't get paid hardly anything. But regardless, your quality of life is pretty decent. You have a roof over your head. You have food to eat. You have a job to go to. They train you. Everything really is taken care of for you. So the rest of that paycheck is honestly just gravy at that point. And that's what we're getting at, is that by having this lower paycheck, we can bring some labor back to America by having competitive wages with foreign markets. Because
Yes.
as it is right now, you can't pay an American, in a living wage where they're expected to pay for their apartment or pay their mortgage and then also pay their healthcare bills and then also pay for their food. You just can't pay them that wage and still be competitive with foreign markets in labor. But if you have that cost reduced, now we can become competitive again and also be providing an opportunity for social mobility for anybody and everybody. And that includes the Black community too.
Right. What are your thoughts on how the Labor Brigade could impact the Black community, especially overnight, as what Ice Cube was demanding? Well, what do you think about that?
I think that there is room, plenty of room, for Black people to benefit from a organization like this, especially when opportunities like this are either the military or like not. Like this is military-esque without the commitment to like war and the stuff that we went through. Like whether even if it's not wartime stuff.
It's a wartime economy, but the war is basically the economic war that we're fighting against COVID-19.
Right.
Right. Right.
So I think right now we're at a place in society where all people, but Black people especially, could benefit from be given an opportunity to live without the worry of the bills and the light bill, because there's a whole narrative built into that where, we're like Black people are so hell-bent on society, on survival, that we don't really think about the future as much as, other, demographics, whatever the case may be. Because for us, when I was growing up, and for other people I know, it's like, make it to the next day. Like, let's get to the next month. Let's get to the next year. So I think a organization like this would definitely benefit, because if you think about it, like, where do recruiters mostly spend their time at is low-income societies and neighborhoods anyway. So if you guys came in and swooped in and gave Black people an opportunity to gain some of those same disciplines and skills without the worry of like never coming back home to their parents, or, deploying for years and being estranged from their kids and all those things, like it's not the craziest thing in the world to imagine. So I think we've seen it with the New Deal. We've seen it with other bills being passed in the past, where white people came, leaps and bounds ahead of the rest of the world with organizations like this that help, like singled out non-African American people to better in society. So I think if there was an organization that could encompass everyone and didn't single anyone out, I think that would definitely benefit, everybody. So I think it has a real chance.
So if this idea of a labor brigade, the mission of the labor brigade would be to increase the purchasing power of the individual, so we don't have to artificially raise the minimum wage, but instead we're giving each and every single individual more purchasing power by reducing the costs, when you go to buy a final product. So when you go buy those Nike shoes, those without once $200 Nike Jordan shoes, the price is either going to be cut in half, or if not further cut in half than that, because we're just going after what is, giving us the most purchasing power for all of society, thus unlocking the most value for all of society, right? And so how could you encourage like the Black community to not only get on board with this, but how could why is this idea in their best benefit? Like, how is it going to benefit them? Yeah.
I think it goes back to what, not to get too far in the weeds, but, we know redlining. I don't have to get the whole history on redlining. Mark, you understand redlining. I know, Lucas, you understand what they did with redlining, where, based on your area code, based on your zip code, that'll tell you your whole life story, because certain people were put in certain neighborhoods, white people were put in certain neighborhoods, and they were taken care of, and we were put in certain neighborhoods. So I think when we think about the history of America, like, it's time, if you're not going to give us reparations the way we want it, or the way certain people want it, like, you got to give Black people the opportunity to prove themselves as equals, because we're human beings. Like Egypt, our ancestry, like, Black people were here a long time, and we weren't just like this. We weren't just in the ghettos of the neighborhoods, in the slums. So, like, I think an opportunity, if you give Black people the opportunity to thrive, they will. If you give any person the opportunity, white people have already proven it. You've already proven that if you're given the space and the time and opportunity, you'll thrive. I think the Labor Brigade will give Black people and white people, everybody, the opportunity to thrive equally, at least in this circumstance, and then incentivize it in a certain way where, like, anybody who joins will have a chance. That's why I appreciate the military for what it did, because it gave me a better chance to compete with people like y'all, like other white people that went to Columbia, NYU, and Fordham, and St. John's, and all these top schools, Stanford. It gave me an opportunity to compete because I did that. I think the Labor Brigade can give Black people an opportunity to compete, because that's all we need. We don't need people to, like, pay our bills for the rest of our lives. We just need equal footing. Put us, like, right here with white people, and if the white person get it, cool. But you can't put us here and put white people here and put us here and say, now go do it. We'll never win like that. But I think the Labor Brigade can give us an opportunity to kind of equal the playing field and give it a better chance for everyone to succeed.
Okay. So to follow up a question with that, what would you say from, like, the academic critique, which would basically be like, oh, this Labor Brigade is just another clever way for the capitalist system to exploit the labor of Black people, and it's a continuation of systematic racism. Is that a valid argument in this sense, or do you think it actually is trying to pursue what is good and best for all of humanity?
I think if you follow that logic to the logical conclusion, I think if you follow any critique of, like, or any examination of any society, you'll find that certain people are exploited more than others. And that's what it is. But I think if you really zoom in and nuance, like we talked about nuance earlier, where, like, the devil is in the details. Like, when we get into the details and we say, all right, these people are given an opportunity, these people are given an opportunity. If a certain, like, give people an opportunity to prove themselves. And I feel like they'll be, and I can already see the critiques of the Labor Brigade from the African American community. I already have them. I already can see them. I can already envision the op-eds that you guys will have to, respond to in the future. I'm a writer, so hire me if you need that.
All right.
Like, I can already see the opposition, because it is conservative in nature. It is It does have a certain kind of Americanness or nationalness to it in nature. But I think if you really genuinely make it about the best people having the best opportunities, then, you know, and then proving it, then showing the statistics that when black people go through your system, the labor brigade, and they succeed, and the white people, and don't play with the numbers. The numbers are the numbers. Capitalism is what it is. And that's the problem with capitalism that's separate from the labor brigade, where it's like the labor brigade could be doing a certain kind of work and capitalism is doing its own kind of thing because of the foundation of capitalism. You know, so you guys are, I agree that the work you guys are trying to do is admirable and it's real, but don't underestimate the power of dead ass capitalism, because capitalism, rich people run the world. It's a plutocracy that we live in, and democratic plutocracy. That's the word I was thinking about earlier. It's a democratic plutocracy that we live in. Don't underestimate that. However, I think there will be criticisms of the African American community, of course. The thing is, and I'll say this real quick, when you get on Twitter or you get on Facebook, there's gonna be criticisms of anything that happens. I think Donald Trump is an idiot and 96% of this stuff that he says is dumb. 3%, I just be like, whatever. You know, like, I don't have to oppose everything. I think there's a certain section of the world that's gonna oppose any and everything, no matter what it is. And you guys just gotta be ready for that, whether it's white or black.
But those people are trying to pull everything down. They're not trying to build everything up. And what we're trying to do is create a movement that is trying to find the best way to fix the problem and to address this problem. And I think it's something that, you know, for Ice Cube, it can be solved tomorrow. Like if we wanted to sign some type of executive action to be able to get people to producing in the middle of the desert where they could actually be quarantined for 14 days to start producing for the American economy, it can be done tomorrow. Like it can be done. Will it be done? You know, like that's obviously, you know, like it's worth talking to about the American people. We don't know if we're correct, but we're trying to get these ideas out there, which is why we're having this conversation, you know, and I think it is a, you know, genuine movement. I know that these ideas have never been really talked about in this context in the way that it's, you know, that's being presented to the American people, you know, so.
I've never heard this idea from this point of view before. Like, honestly, this me talking candidly, like to y'all. And it's interesting because I've had similar views and everybody, you know, and this is the thing, and that's how I'll say this about like Trump and Republicans, whatever. Trump is an idiot, but I don't disagree with conservatives all the time, because there is certain tenets of conservatism that make sense to like your average. Like I was talking to my dad yesterday, and he hates Trump like through and through, but he's a conservative. At like his values are conservative. So when you talk about the brigade, and when you talk about like the certain things that you want to do, it's important to disassociate yourself from Donald Trump, because he's not representative of conservatism or Republicans, because most black people would be Republicans if Republicans weren't so race oriented. You know, like I've heard podcasts, I've listened to podcasts from you name it. And I came home from the military and my friends were like, yo, you Republican. It's like, nah, I just believe in hard work. I just believe in getting up, doing what you gotta do. Yo, grind, hustle hard, whatever you want to call it in your vernacular, you get to it. So I understand how the labor brigade can be beneficial to people who want to work hard, because there is a certain section of the world and there is a certain sect of society, and it's just us. You got to work hard. Like whether your work hard is intellectual, whether you're working hard is physical, whether you're working hard is, you know, through politics or through writing or through computer science or through whatever it is, it's hard work, it's labor. So why not turn that labor into something that could benefit society going forward and not hinder the free market concepts that are going on today? I think it's a good mix of what you guys are trying to do of both worlds.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. We've put in a lot of work. Mark, you got anything to add?
No, not really. I mean, so I just wanted to clarify a few things. So we're very likely to face a lot of opposition to this idea. I think that's just going to happen. And I think one of the things that's going to happen is people are going to say, well, who's going to pay for this? And that's a very valid concern. And I am in no way pro taxes. Taxes suck. I don't like taxes. But I think that, going back to the contract with Black America, where it's a public-private partnership, right? We can do something similar here, where the entire brunt of the cost does not have to come from the American public. The companies who are producing these products are already paying wages to somebody, right? So they may as well be paying them to us. So if we make our wages competitive, they could be paying it to us. So that's part of the cost. The other thing is, if you look at the Department of Defense's budget, it's astronomical. It's huge. And the amount of that budget that actually goes into the pockets or taking care of the actual Department of Defense members is very small. And I think it's also important to note that while taxes would certainly have some part to play in this formula, all of the people working in the labor brigade having all of this expendable income that they didn't have before would be putting that money back into the economy, right? Which is going to help the economy grow. And theoretically, by having our corporations using labor from the labor brigade, they're going to produce these things here in America. So you're going to be spending money that's going to go back into American companies in America and our economy. And furthermore, we also could be using the labor brigade to handle problems like infrastructure. One of the demands that I've seen from several groups is that the infrastructure in a lot of lower socioeconomic income neighborhoods is terrible. The infrastructure is just not there. It's been neglected. And the infrastructure in America in general is wanting, to say the least, right? So the labor brigade could be used to handle things like providing affordable housing in low-income neighborhoods, housing that's new and clean and safe,
built with cheaper labor.
Yes.
Because
Not
labor
to
is the most
mention,
important,
the
the
labor
most
brigade
important
can build their own
cost.
housing, right? They can
Yeah.
be living in housing that they built. And if you work in the labor brigade and say you come from Oakland and like you built this new housing and you helped on a project where you fixed, the water supplies, say if you're in Flint and you're part of the labor brigade and you're a plumber in the labor brigade and you fixed the water in Flint, Michigan, and you're from Flint, now you get to have pride for the rest of your life in saying, I'm from Flint and I helped fix the water in the labor brigade. I did that in my own community, right? Like there's a lot of ways in which this is going to be able to benefit America and the American economy and the American people, right? The taxes, that's something that needs to be handled, but it's a smaller part of the picture than I think is a lot of the other things are.
We
right?
got to increase the pie. Right now the problem is so bad that we got to so many people showed up to the party and we don't got enough cake. That's what's happening right now. And we need to make a lot of cake, so everybody could could go back to work and be able to enjoy the party. And the labor brigade, ideally could help rebuild America's renewable housing infrastructure to try to restore the American dream. Because growing up we were told if you just got your college degree, you're going to be able to have a family, have a good job, have a retirement, and settle down and be fine. And that's what everybody wants in America, or at least that's what we were sold growing up. But that's no longer true to everybody. It's starting to be, as the capitalist economy gets more and more competitive, it's getting even less and less truer because more people are getting more productive. And it turns out you only need a couple lawyers and a couple investment bankers at the top to handle the entire banking system, and those guys make a lot of money. And but they also work a bunch of hours, and there's trade-offs, you know what I mean? Like you don't want to be working a bunch of hours in the labor brigade, but it's hard work, and not everybody wants to be, doing physical labor. That's why they try to go hide in a cubicle, And
that's why we got to get to a point too in society where we don't treat, and that's the Marxism that I saw in your thesis. you didn't allude to like labor as the, you know, the person as the labor. You didn't get into that dialect as much, you know, because people shouldn't be measured on how hard they work as much as how well they work. But I think the capitalist ideology is the harder you work, the better of a worker you are, and there's flaws in that too. And as long as we, or as long as you, in the labor, you know, project, like as long as you, the harder you guys focus in on like making labor or making work something that's more enjoyable, less arduous, more, you know, cool and less strenuous, the better the employees will be, and the better the whole society will be. And that's the point when these billionaire, trillionaire owners start understanding that, like, when you treat your employees better, you get a. Y'all was in the military. You know when you had that E5 that loved you to death and will
You
go
gotta
to bat
let
for
your
you.
you gotta let your privates eat first
Like
when you have lunch, you know.
Simon Sinek wrote a book. Y'all check it out. It's called Leaders Eat Last.
Yep.
And when you treat your subordinates like gold, they'll give you that back times 50. And as long as that's the focus of any project that you get into in the future, well, like your subordinates come first, your employees come first. Like they got 30 days vacation, you got 17. Like, and I know everybody wanna, no, they got 30 days vacation for a year, you got 18, and I guarantee they'll work 75 times harder for you. Like they'll give it 130. And once we come to that place, when you hire the right people, when you give a F about society, and when you give a F about people, and you become empathetic, and you understand that, you know, certain people are in circumstances that they didn't necessarily like, you know, they're better than the circumstances. I'm the first person in my family with a degree of any kind. Cousin, sister, brother, mom. I don't have a brother, dad, granddad, great. I'm the only person with a college degree. And imagine if the person I would be if I had somebody that I could like take tutelage from when I was younger, like, yo, this is how you do it. I graduated high school with a 1.7 GPA. So like, it's not everybody's fault that the situation that they're in, but once you put them in a better situation, you got to treat them accordingly. You got to treat them like, you can't treat them like, oh, this is your last resort. Because that's how the army will do you.
Right.
You know, certain organization is to treat you like,
that's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. We need to have redemption and we need to have forgiveness as a society to be able to keep going forward. And the ability, if you do join the Labor Brigade, this is your second chance, but it's not because it's your last option by any stretch of the imagination. You're voluntarily taking on cheaper wages, which is a very honorable thing to do for any person, to get paid for less, to produce on behalf of the collective, for the greater good, for not just the United States, but for the entire world, to help get us out of this pandemic. You know what I mean? And like companies like Nike, there's a reason why I use them, because they're on the forefront of social justice. They're out here, you know, they got Black Lives Matter on the courts for the NBA, making commercials, and it's great. Like everybody wants to make a change, and I truly believe that everybody would get involved. We just don't know how. Up to this point in history, we haven't figured out a way to do this, and I think that it's in the best interest of Nike shareholders, because who are Nike shareholders? They're also the hedge funds, which are your mom and dad's pension funds, basically. And those funds that are invested in Nike why do people make investments anyway? To make them better off in the long run. Well, you got to make an investment in the labor corps to make everybody better off in the long run. And that's the way that I see it, from a very investment perspective, in unlocking value for all of society. And that's, you know, like Warren Buffett actually came up with that, who's a very rich man who could be an evil capitalist, but he came up with the idea of social value investing. And he believes that there's value to be unlocked, even though that you can't quantitatively see it on a balance sheet. And that's what this is. It's raising everybody's, value without it, increasing the balance sheet to be able to share the dividends with the shareholders. But it's much bigger than that, because it's better dividends. We just can't quantitatively show it.
There's no problem putting people through certain kinds of labor as we went through in the military, but the incentive was what? I got 2 degrees for free. You got a degree. He getting a degree. Mark getting a degree. free of charge. We get paid a nice BAH balance at the end of the month. So like, or the beginning of the month. So like, incentive is real. So like, I always harken back to incentive, because it's like, when you incentivize human beings to be better, like, most people will be better. Like, most people aren't born like without the ability to thrive. You know, like, there's a very, very small percentage of us, black, white, whatever, you know, that are just like, some people we met were like, you just ain't got it. But most of us can do it. Give us, let your project be the way where it's like, listen, you graduated, you're not quite, and quick segue. But another thing that's not all, like, I don't believe in 100% is that you graduate high school at 18 and I'm supposed to know what I want to do for the rest of my life.
You ain't
Like,
telling me.
That's why I didn't go to college.
That's why I joined the Marine Corps. I think the Marine Corps is
Yeah.
the smartest thing for me to do. Nobody knows what the heck they want to study at 18 years old. And I don't care who it is. And the most messed up thing about our current society is that you're just making high school, the most emotional time, be the determining factor for your entire future. That determines whether you get into Harvard or if you get into like some, you know, other state school, or don't even go to college at all, you know? And it's messed up because that's usually actually determined by your zip code.
And it's mostly determined by zip code. And it's messed up because, like, when I was 18, I went to community college my first semester at it when I graduated. Failed out my first semester of community college just because I didn't care, because I didn't know what I wanted out of life. Like, unless you grew up under a certain kind of tutelage, blah, 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 you don't know what you want out of life. So why are we sending 18-year-olds to college anyway? Most 18-year-olds are not ready for that, to say, like, I want to be a biochemist, or I want to be a biology. Nobody know. Yo, 18, can you remember when you guys were 18? Like, what was going through your brains? Like, we were thinking about.
I thought I wanted to be like Kobe. I thought I could, if I
Yeah.
practiced really, really hard, I could play an NBA. That did not work out, everybody.
Stupid. I'm thinking about stupid stuff. I wasn't thinking about anything. I was just like, I wake up and what I want to do today. So I think the Labor Brigade is because a lot of apprenticeships have taken on this mantle of like, all right, you don't want to go to college, like, try the apprenticeship. But a lot of that stuff be expensive. You know, Lincoln Tech.
Yeah.
You got Lincoln Tech in New Jersey, $50,000 a year. You'll be a plumber, engineer, whatever you want in 3 years, but it's $50,000 a year. Crazy prices. You know, and other apprenticeships that I know, you know, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, if you guys can create a segue between, you know, teenage years and like adulthood, it could work, man. There's a space for that. And I was talking to my professor from undergrad. He's English, he's a PhD now, but he was just like, no 18-year-old should go to college. Because you're not
the truth.
ready.
They're not there to pursue the truth, which is to go into the books. A lot of them are there because it's their first moment to be free, and they've been under the tyranny of their parents this entire time.
Or they're
and
just
now
told that that's what you do after high school.
Right, and most of them end up in an okay place, but they don't know what they're not pursuing what their passions are. If you ask the average college student, they'll tell you like, oh, I studied economics because I want to make money. You know, it's not because of like a larger goal, and that's what we're trying to unlock here.
And that's where I think, like, even if the Labor Brigade is the segue to somebody finding themselves, like, it's a cost-free, more efficient, less strenuous option. You know, the military was our option. We was like, all right, I don't want to do college, and I hate all these jobs. I'm working at the warehouse. Let me go to the military. That's where I was at. And I think the Labor Brigade can be a softer landing for people who don't know what they want to do in college, or don't want to go immediately, and people who just feel like, you know, working for $6 an hour and having to pay my rent is just, or at $10 an hour and having to pay my rent, it's just way too difficult of a task. You guys have a real concept here. It's a real good foundation. Lucas, I would go back your thesis It has some slippery slopes in it. Got some slippery slopes in there, brother. I studied philosophy. I studied law a little bit. I'm thinking about going to law school. And I was like, real slippery slopes, but I like where you're going as far as, the taxation thing that has real legs. Some of the other stuff.
From a purely economic point of view, for the most part, it checks out. It's like basically what I think we all are trying to say.
It checks out.
It's worth looking. Yeah.
But it leaves out race. And I'm not going to make this a race
issue. Right.
It leaves out race a lot. It leaves out economic opportunities for certain different demographics more than others. It just forgets those things. We'll do that another day. Invite me when that day comes. However,
well, we could somewhat nail it down, because remember we talked about the dialectical materialist of Marx, and how we would be, by entering socialism, we're entering into another phase of human nature to some extent, like a phase in history. We're entering the socialist phase versus the capitalist phase. So by definition, since capitalism is systematically racist, we would be transcending that phase onto something better. And so I think that way it does tackle the issue.
Right.
And it treats everybody better. And so I don't want to talk too long about it, because I know we got to wrap this up. But I think it does address the issue, and we could talk about it again next time. So
I think, like, to wrap it up, like, I think to transition away from capitalism would be transitioning away from a certain kind of racism that we're so used to, that is so embedded, is so inculcated, is so subtle, that we don't even notice it. But I think the transition away from the capitalism, free market capitalism, capitalist state that we're in now, and transition into a more free market socialist state that we need to be in, because there's no reason why you have extreme wealth and extreme poverty. Regardless of how intellectual you are, how good you are, how bad. Listen, I know people who don't deserve whatever, and I know people who are rich and can't out talk me in no arena. So it doesn't matter on that as much, but I think that when you have a society that has those polar extremities the way that we have, there's a problem there. And next time we get into the podcast, we'll walk through that a little bit more. But I think, like, there's no need to have the extremes that we have. And I think that the Labor Brigade is a beginning of trying to bridge those extremities. Like, there's no reason why we have supremely skilled and rich people and supremely skilled and unrich human beings, when all human beings are mostly cut from the same cloth. And I think if you guys cut this the right way and you fine tune it the right way, we can find some kind of happy median-ish. You're not gonna make everybody happy, but there can be a median that can be met that can appease all races, all people, all everything.
Amazing, Malcolm. Really appreciate having you on this for this episode of Deliberation Academy, and we look forward to speaking to you next time.
Hey, Black Lives Matter, man.